أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I welcome you students to class for the 5th week activity. Last week we have started with excretion and we are continuing with that. How are you at home? How is everything? I hope you are staying well. I pray Allah to be with every one of you. Now, before I start the lesson, I made a mistake of pasting 4th week assignment on a 5th week page. Please kindly open your 5th week assignment page for the 4th week assignment, please. It is just a mistake. Now, to continue with, we are looking at excretion in mammals today. Don't forget that we have explained mechanism of excretion in some organisms. We mentioned that of unicellular organism that make use of contractile vacuole. We mentioned that of earthworm that make use of nephridia. We mentioned that of flatworm that uses a flame cell, and I believe you understand all these mechanisms. Today we are looking at a mechanism of excretion in mammals or man in particular. Now, don't forget that we mentioned that excretion is very important because the waste materials produced by the body during metabolic activity are toxic to the body. Therefore, it has to be removed. I mentioned some other reasons why excretion is very important then. The body excretes 3 main waste materials: carbon dioxide, urea, and water. This excretion is very important, is a very important feature to us because without it, toxic substances will build up in our body and kill us. It also helps in maintaining the composition of body fluid, that is homeostasis. There are 4 types of excretory organ in mammals. We have the lung, the skin, the liver, and the kidney. In the previous lesson, we have mentioned how the lung excretes waste products in form of water vapor and carbon dioxide. The kidney is also a major organ for excretion. The kidney excretes water, urea, mineral salt, uric acid, creatinine through urine. This kidney is a bean-shaped reddish-brown organ located at the posterior end of the abdomen. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left. The kidney consists of an outer cortex and inner medulla, in which millions of narrow tubules called urinary tubules are enclosed. I mean, inside the kidney there are many tubules called urinary tubules, which are the functional unit of excretion. The urinary tubules are inside the kidney. They are the functional unit for excretion. These tubules open to a triangular shaped tissue called pyramid. The pyramids enter into a funnel shaped cavity called pelvis. I'm going to show you all this on the diagram, inshallah. The kidney is supplied with many tiny capillaries, which are branches of renal artery and renal vein. Don't forget, we mentioned that the renal artery supplies the kidney with blood, while the renal vein takes blood away from the kidney. We mentioned the other time that arteries take blood out of the heart to supply all the body parts, while veins take the blood back to the heart. So the blood vessel that is responsible for supplying the kidney is renal artery, and the one that takes the blood out of the kidney is the renal vein. Thus, the excretory system in mammals include the kidneys, that is 2 kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, the urethra. Then we have the renal artery and the renal vein. Those are the blood vessels. The renal artery supplies blood to the blood vessels in the kidney, while renal veins take blood away from the kidney. There's a structure called ureter. This connects the kidney to the bladder. You are going to see this on that diagram now, where urine is temporarily stored. I mean, the bladder stores the urine temporarily until the urethra opens in order to pass it out of the body. As the bladder opens to the exterior, through the urethra, urine is passed out. Now, this is the structure of the kidney or the excretory system. This is the excretory system that we have been explaining. I hope you can see the adrenal gland. That is an emergency gland. It is not responsible for excretion, but that is where Almighty Allah has located it. In future, we are going to look at the functions of the adrenal gland. Then you can see the renal artery. That is the blood vessel that supplies the kidney with blood. The blood coming from the heart enters the kidney through the renal artery. Under it, we have beside it we have a renal vein that takes blood out of the kidney back to the heart. Well, I hope you can see the kidney. Then under that we have a dorsal aorta. That is a big artery that supplies the renal artery. Then we have ureter. It is a tube that connects the kidney to the bladder. The urinary bladder is a temporary storage organ of urine. So urine that is moving from the kidney or coming from the kidney is stored in the urinary bladder temporarily. By the time we need to pass out the urine, it passes through the urethra out of the body. At the other side, I hope you can see inferior vena cava. That is a big blood vein. It is a big vein which supplies a renal vein. The cross section of the kidney is shown at that side. As you can see the pelvis, the region of the pelvis. Then we have followed by medulla. No, the cortex is the outer. And we have the cortex followed by medulla. Then we have the pelvis. The cortex, the medulla, the pelvis. So you can look at that one clearly in this second diagram. I hope you can see the cortex. Then we have the medulla before we have the apex of pyramid. At the other side, I hope you can see the location of the renal artery, the renal vein, the pelvis, and the ureter. So when you get to the functions of all this, you are going to see how each of them perform its function. Now, the urinary tubule or nephron. The urinary tubule, as I mentioned the other time, is located inside the kidney. We have millions of these urinary tubules, otherwise known as nephrons, inside the kidney. It is a functional unit that carry out excretion in the kidney. It begins with cortex. It begins in the cortex. The urinary tubule begins with cortex, begins in the cortex as a cup-shaped structure called Bowman's capsule. I will show you all this on the diagram. Then the capsule opens into a coiled tube called proximal convoluted tubule. This proximal convoluted tubule is a coiled tube, as I've mentioned. Then it straightens out to a U-shaped structure called Henle's loop. That is the structure the tubule has entered into the medulla at this particular time. Later, it re-enters the cortex. Then the tubule coils again to form distal convoluted tubule. Don't mind the space in between. It is just a mistake. There shouldn't be any gap between the notes. It is a continuous note, please. So the tubule bends to complete its course in the medulla. The tubule then pours its content into the connecting duct, which enters into the pelvis at the apex of pyramid. Now the renal artery branches into a mass of blood capillaries in the Bowman's capsule called the glomerulus. This rejoins to form a blood vessel which branches into a capillary network around the urinary tubule and later form branch of renal vein. This I'm explaining is enclosed in this diagram. I hope you can see this diagram. This is called urinary tubule or nephron. This nephron starts in the cortex. The beginning, that is the cup-like shaped called Bowman's capsule. That is the blue part of the diagram. That blue part is the Bowman's capsule, a cup-like shaped material. So that is found around the cortex in the kidney. The renal artery enters into the Bowman capsule to form blood capillaries called glomerulus. I hope you can see inside that cup-shaped material, we have the glomerulus inside the Bowman's capsule. It is the renal artery that supplies that blood into the cup-like shape of Bowman capsule, and that is called, I said inside that cup there is blood capillaries. So the blood that are supplied into that blood capillaries by renal artery, and that blood capillaries are otherwise known as glomerulus. I hope you can see that in the diagram. Now, that is the cup-like capsule, that is Bowman capsule, now enters into proximal convoluted tubule. That is a coiled shaped proximal convoluted shape capsule. I hope you can see that coiled region. That is proximal convoluted tubule. This proximal convoluted tubule straightens up to give us Henle's loop or loop of Henle's. I hope you can see a U-shaped structure. That is the Henle's loop or loop of Henle. Then it later also move further to form distal convoluted tubule. That is another coiled area, distal convoluted tubule. Then the distal convoluted tubule join the connecting tubule which connects all the urine that has been collected by the urinary tubule. Then it moves to the renal vein, then renal vein to the connecting duct, then where it passes the urine that has been collected into the pelvis. Don't forget all these are in the diagram I've shown before. You can see that kidney. So I said that the urinary tubule is inside this kidney, starting from the cortex, then coiled into the medulla, enters the cortex back and back to the medulla around the apex of pyramid in order to drop all the waste material that has been collected by the tubule into this pelvis. And when it gets to this pelvis, the pelvis sends it to the ureter. Then the ureter sends it to the bladder. Don't forget that the ureter connects the kidney to the bladder. So the bladder will now store the urine for a period of time until it is released out as what? As urine. Now, mechanism of excretion. Now, before we go to mechanism of excretion, the mechanism of excretion in mammals is of three processes. We have ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption. That IN is not there, please, it's a typographical error. Selective reabsorption and hormonal secretion. So mechanism of excretion in mammals is divided into three stages: ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and hormonal secretion. For ultrafiltration, the renal arteries bring blood to the kidney, as I've mentioned the other time. It circulates through the glomerulus of each bowel mass capsule. Don't forget I said that when the renal artery brings blood into the bowel mass capsule, the blood enters into the blood capillaries inside the cup-like shaped bowel mass capsule in form of glomerulus. So the material there is the glomerulus. Now, during this period, ultrafiltration occurs. That is, water, urea, mineral salt, glucose, and plasma solute are filtered into the capsule at that region, and that is called ultrafiltration. From the blood that has entered into the bowel mass capsule, which we refer to as glomerulus, the filtration occurs. Filtration occurs wherein water, urea, mineral salt, glucose, and plasma solutes are filtered inside this cup into the capsule or into the tubule, and that is called ultrafiltration. As you can see in the diagram, the cup-like shaped bowel mass capsule. See the renal artery supplying the blood into the cup-like shaped capsule, that is glomerulus, and filtration occurs at that cup, inside that cup or inside the bowel mass capsule, and the materials entered into the tubule, that is the materials that are filtered enters into the tubule. Now the second process is selective reabsorption. Selective reabsorption. In this process, the fluid in the glomerulus filtrate. What is filtered inside the tubule is called glomerulus filtrate. Now flows through the tubule all along. It flows down through the tubule. When it gets to the proximal convoluted tubule and Henle's loop, some materials are absorbed back into the blood vessels around the tubules. Materials like sugar, amino acid, salt, water that are still useful to the body are reabsorbed against concentration gradient by active support, that is, it gains the difference between the body fluid and the fluid inside the tubule. It gains the differences between the concentration of material in the blood as well as that of the tubule through active transport. I believe you know what active transport is. We have mentioned it sometimes. So this condition or this process is known as selective reabsorption. Selective reabsorption. So under the diagram, I hope you can see the proximal convoluted tubule as well as endless loop. That is the region where selective reabsorption occurs, where some materials that are still useful to the body are reabsorbed back into the blood capillaries that surround the tubules. Don't forget that there are a lot of blood capillaries that around the urinary tubules. So when reabsorption occurs, material that are reabsorbed enters back into the blood capillaries, many blood capillaries that surround the urinary tubules. Now, the third process, that is hormonal secretion, that is during excretion, there is ultrafiltration, there is selective reabsorption, and the last process is hormonal secretion. What do we mean by this? When the glomerular filtrate reaches the distal convoluted tubule, there is secretion of one hormone called antidiuretic hormone by the pituitary gland in the brain. The pituitary gland in the brain releases hormone called antidiuretic hormone, ADH. The release of or the secretion of this hormone causes the absorption of water, which makes the fluid in the tubule to be more concentrated, and at that particular time a concentrated urine is formed. What am I saying? I mean that the antidiuretic hormone is secreted, which causes the reabsorption of water from the tubule, that is from the glomerular filtrate inside the tubule. There is reabsorption of water because urine might have want to take out water out of the body, and if this water is taken out, it might lead to dehydration. So in order to prevent dehydration, there will be reabsorption of water from the urine back into the body system. So therefore, it is the action of the antidiuretic hormone that causes the reabsorption of water at the distal convoluted tubule region. Now this urine, after the reabsorption has taken place, absorption of water has taken place, the urine enters into the pelvis that I showed to you in the kidney the other time. So the material is dropped in the pelvis, and this propel or move through peristalsis, that is peristalsis movement, a wave-like movement. It rolls, it waves down through the ureter into the bladder. Don't forget the ureter connects the kidney to the bladder. So the movement of the urine inside the ureter is described as peristalsis, a static movement, because it is a wave-like movement down into the bladder. When the bladder is full, the bladder will contract, and urine will pass out of the body through the urethra. Urine passes out of the body through the urethra. Please, urethra, not ureter. Ureter joins kidney to the bladder, but urethra is an opening to the exterior, to the external, the opening of the opening of the bladder. It is a gate man. Hope you can see urethra here. Hope you can see urethra. That is the opening of the bladder. When it opens, the urine comes out. So the urine passes through the urethra out of the body. So these are the three processes in the formation of urine. That is ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and hormonal secretion. At that particular time, the urine is already formed. I want to show you this under the diagram. The urine is already formed, and it comes out through the urethra. Now we move to mechanism of excretion in plants. Mechanism of excretion in plants. Okay, before I go to mechanism of excretion, after the urine has been formed and the material is dropped around the pelvis, this is the pelvic region. This one I'm showing is the pelvic region. So the waste material are dropped in the connecting tissue, which connect everything into the pelvis. As you can see, to pelvis. So at the pelvis, there's peristalsis movement of this urine through the urethra and to the bladder, and the urethra opens and the waste material goes out. Now, excretion in plant. Excretion in plant. Now, plant excretory products include water, carbon dioxide, tannins, rennins, alkaloids, crystals of salt, oil, gum, anthocyanin, and so on and so forth. These are some of the waste material produced by the plant that are asked to move out of the body. Don't forget, we have mentioned that there are two major openings in plant. That is the stomata on the surface of the leaf and lenticels on the surface of the stem. These two organs are very much responsible for removal of waste products in plants. As you can see, the stomata pore, that is the opening, the small tiny opening on the leaf of the plant, through which materials are exchanged between the environment and the plant. Also in respiration too, gases are also exchanged. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged through these stomata pore. So as well as all the waste products too, they move out through the stomata pore on the leaf of the plant. At the gate of each stomata pore, there is a guard cell. You can see the location of the guard cell. That is a gate mark that is responsible for selective reabsorption. It permits absorption, but it is responsible for, it is permeable to materials. It allows material, but material that it permits must be selective, not just any material. So there is a selection of material by the guard cell. It guides the stomata pore. Then the ancestral cell. Hope you can see all this. Then the lenticels too. On the surface of the stem, we have many lenticels. Hope you can see the small opening on the surface of the stem. So these two regions, these two organs, are responsible for removal of waste materials. At this junction, we are going to pause till next lesson, when we continue either on excretion or the next topic. Don't forget that I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson that I've dropped 4th week assignment, but I mistakenly drop it in 5th week page. Please go and open your 5th week page to do 4th week assignment and submit, inshallah, before weekend. Then 5th week assignment will also be dropped immediately, maybe today or tomorrow, inshallah. So make sure you do what? You do your assignment after listening to this lecture. I pray Allah to be with you, with your parents, and we too, your teachers. I pray that we meet, inshallah, in peace, and pray that Allah will spare our life till then. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.